Good morning, VEDSies. In this Calvin and Hobbes strip, Calvin says, I like to verb words. What? Hobbes says. I take nouns and adjectives and use them as verbs. Remember when access was a thing? Now it's something you do. It got verbed. Verbing weirds language. The strip ends with Hobbes saying, maybe we can eventually make language a complete impediment to understanding. But I would like to challenge Hobbes on this. Calvin is right. Verbing weirds language. And that's a good thing. You're probably familiar with verbing, which, by the way, is an example of verbing. It's autological, and you might have an opinion about it. We do it all the time. Maybe you're Googling what a verb is right now, or maybe you've previously sandwiched yourself between people at a crowded party. I personally am a fan of the way the word nightmare is used as a verb in Marcus Zuzak's The Book Thief, as in, every night, Liesl would nightmare. Or you've probably heard millennials talk about adulting. Now, maybe you embrace these use cases, but it's also possible that you or someone you know took Hobbes's stance and saw the appropriation of these perfectly good nouns into verbs and saw it as an impediment to understanding. Before we go any further, let's pause for a quick primer on word classes. In the simplest terms, a noun is a person, place, or thing, and a verb is an action. So a building is a thing, it's a noun, and climbing is an action, so it's a verb. In a sentence, nouns are subjects or objects which act or are acted upon by verbs. Some words comfortably function as both. You can run or you can go for a run. In the first example, run is the verb. In the second example, go is the verb and run is the noun, the run being defined as a period of time in which running takes place. And run, by the way, has many more meanings and functions in the English language. It has an impressively long dictionary entry for such a short word. So why don't some people like verbing? What's wrong with words like adulting? Well, the usage in that case doesn't follow widely accepted formal grammar rules, so that gets the prescriptivists upset. Some people just think it sounds juvenile or silly, which, okay, fine, but let's take a closer look at how the word actually functions. Adulting, as it's often used, roughly means doing stuff that grown-ups do. We often talk about adulthood as though it's a state, when it's actually an ongoing process. Adulting is used to describe a variety of actions, usually mundane, that help us to define what adulthood is. These actions can include everything from buying a house, to making responsible financial decisions, to doing the laundry or running errands. Did you catch it? Did you catch the other meaning of run there? Talking about adulting in this way also opens us up to ask other questions, like how do I adult? As in, how do I navigate adult life? How do I manage my new responsibilities? How do I determine and live by my values? And these are great questions. Adulting may seem overly broad because people use it to refer to so many different actions, but I see it as analogous to parenting. When you become a parent, you have to learn how to parent, which is an ongoing process that goes through many different stages as your children age. When you become an adult, you have to learn how to adult. Thinking in verbs can deeply change our understanding of concepts. Take love, for example. Everyone from bell hooks to John Mayer has recognized that if we see love as a feeling or as a state of being in love, then it can prevent us from asking deeper questions like, what does it mean to love someone? How do I love through my actions? If we see love as an emotion first or emotion only, we might use it to justify actions that are not loving. In my first draft of the script, I wanted to talk about other ways that language can shape our understanding. The language of animacy in ecology, for example. The difference between seeing elements of our natural world as an it, a thing, a resource, versus seeing them as he, she, or ki, a being that we are in relationship with. I wanted to talk about the subtle difference between I am and I am being, how I am selfish can create and reinforce a narrative about myself and identity versus I am being selfish, which allows me to examine my actions in the moment with less judgment and permanence. But the truth is, language shapes our understanding in hundreds, in thousands of fascinating ways, and today's video is about verbs. So I will leave you instead with a writing exercise. I once had a picnic with a writing group and we did 2 writing exercises, one much more successful than the other. One exercise was to write about our surroundings with as many sensory details as possible, so using sight, sound, smell, taste, and feel. But the sentences we produced fell flat. They were mostly nouns and adjectives. The air smelled sweet like blueberries. The sound of children laughing was like distant bells. There was a lot of description, but no action. The other exercise was very simple, inspired by this passage in Stephen King's On Writing. Take any noun, put it with any verb, and you have a sentence. It never fails. Rocks explode, Jane transmits, mountains float. These are all perfect sentences. Many such thoughts make little rational sense, but even the stranger ones, plums deify, have a kind of poetic weight that's nice. We generated a list of nouns and a list of verbs, then looked for pairs that we thought would make interesting prompts. Justice tumbles, elephant slithers, jealousy skips, Jupiter transforms, blanket evaporates. The writing generated from these prompts had so much more energy and vitality. Why? The verbs. All of these pairings, no matter how nonsensical, had some verb at their core, some action to inspire a scene. If any of you are writers and you're feeling stuck and uninspired, I really encourage you to try this exercise. It's one of my favorites. It is so simple, but it tends to produce really interesting results. And once you start noticing these noun-verb pairings and just how easily they form a sentence, you'll start seeing them in other places. There are some beautiful examples of simple noun-verb pairings in Stephen Sondheim's lyrics for Pacific Overtures, but that's another story. For now, my friends and VEDSies, verb nouns defy grammar. Let's keep weirding language, and I'll see all of you tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed that one, everybody. We'll totally talk about Pacific Overtures later this month. I hope, I pray, I would, and I still want to talk about Camelot. Oh my gosh. That's another story, never mind. Anyway.